The arrest of the Malian self-proclaimed Marabout, otherwise called native doctor, Mr. Sinayogo, after swindling supporters of €33,500 by promising an Africa Cup of Nations (AFCON) trophy, exposes a persistent and damaging delusion that continues to plague African football. In a sport defined by the laws of physics, tactical discipline, and physiological endurance, the notion that a financial donation to a spiritual healer could influence a quarter-final clash against a team like Senegal is not only irrational but fundamentally anti-competitive. Football is a game of marginal gains achieved through rigorous sports science, high-intensity interval training, and structural organization. When a nation's hopes are diverted from the pitch to the shrine, it undermines the professional efforts of the athletes who spend years honing their physical fitness. To suggest that the outcome of a match is decided by a charlatan's intervention rather than the clinical finishing or defensive coordination of the players is a profound insult to the meritocracy of the sport. Furthermore, the responsibility for such incidents falls into a complex grey area of football governance. So, while the Confederation of African Football, CAF, maintains strict safety and security regulations, they typically govern the behavior of official associations and stadium conduct. Considerably, because this fraud took place outside the official purview of the Malian Football Federation, CAF is unlikely to issue direct sporting penalties against the country. However, the sheer scale of the fraud, collected from a desperate public, suggests a systemic need for further investigation into how these spiritual consultants gain proximity to national team narratives. If a national association is found to have officially sanctioned or provided access to such figures, they could face charges for bringing the game into disrepute. The arrest by Malian authorities for charlatanism is a necessary legal step, but the footballing world must also investigate the cultural enabling that allows such scams to thrive under the guise of national support. CAF may need to investigate whether there was an abstract, physical or any form of contacts between the Malian Football Federation, the football team, and the spiritual supporters. Notably, this reliance on spiritual assistance creates a narrative that has historically hampered the reputation of African players in the eyes of elite European coaches. While Sir Alex Ferguson's perceived lack of affection for African players was largely attributed to the logistical nightmare of losing them to AFCON during the peak of the Premier League season, the stereotype of the unpredictable or spiritually distracted African player has occasionally coloured scouting reports. When the international community sees headline-grabbing stories of native doctor being arrested for AFCON fraud, it reinforces a bias that African football is guided by superstition rather than the professional standards expected at clubs like Manchester United. Ferguson famously prioritized inner steel and tactical reliability, traits that are often unfairly questioned when a player's home environment is associated with the erratic promises of miracle workers. For African football to command the respect it deserves globally, it must decouple its identity from the predatory and native doctors who profit from the passion of fans.